Is the music coming through Skype? Okay. They had a new setting in the menu that was like how much noise reduction it wanted it to do. And it said use low if you want music to come across. We don't really need it badly, but I figured I'd leave it there and see how it went. Good. That'll help the next time we do the songs of whatever decade. Which I guess will be episode 600.
Dave, I'm so sorry. It finally hit you.
This is the Team Objection Podcast for June 14th, 2022, episode 532.
I cannot help but fucking notice there's no goddamn Cody.
Somewhere right here, there's just like...
What a little piece of shit. Last week gave so much shit to Dave for not being here.
After, I mean, he better have either like a meeting with his boss, like a super important one, which he gets a double his pay and salary, or like have gotten in a car accident.
I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to hear whatever excuse he has.
Well, I mean, you could have finished eating and been a professional, but no, you have to be a dick who eats on camera.
Well, yeah, I always eat on camera. This is my thing now. Everybody loves it.
How much it annoys me.
Yeah, well, your face annoys me.
I mean, here, Chris, shut my
What are you
camera
gonna do? You gonna go off camera? I didn't think so.
There you go. Just shut my camera off. Be done with it.
I was just going to jump straight into the bracket because we have a lot to get to. I'm hoping to get through the rest of the first round today.
And if Cody doesn't get to vote, fuck that guy.
We might just do it. I'm not sure. I'm trying to vamp a little bit, but...
Well, here's what we can do. We can get in the votes. We can make it a fun thing. We get in our votes. We don't maybe lock it in. I don't know if that actually logistically is kind of a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then he comes in just really quick, goes through them, and maybe sometimes it's the tiebreaker. We don't tell him, and then it's great. And we make lemons out of lemonade.
I say he's not here. He doesn't get to do it.
No, what bullshit? We waited like fucking 30 minutes for you last week.
There's a text from Cody. It says, "Is the door open?" I hope it still is.
No, Cody, we locked it.
You know how else you find out if the door's open? You fucking try it.
I just texted him yes. Because that makes sense.
Yeah, Dave from Phoenix telling Cody and Flagstaff.
Makes sense to me.
Well, we'll see. Since he's supposedly nearby.
Lord Cody better need the door unlocked.
Do a review while we're waiting for Cody. Well, we don't have anything even shorter than last time.
I saw Top Gun 2.
I haven't seen it yet.
I know, I can't review it.
I will see it next week.
Can I just say?
No, 2 weeks.
I fucking loved it.
No, next week. Yeah,
as someone who didn't even really like the first one.
They might make $1 billion, and I would not have said that was ever going to happen.
And
I thought this could be big, but not that big.
It's earned.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Everybody seems to love it, which is great.
And it's not just like oh, it's cool because the planes. It's like it's just legitimately a great movie.
I've heard that there is a balance of nostalgia and newness that they strike a really good mix of.
Which is what these, I was going to say remakes, but whatever you want to call these continuations years later, whatever they are, like that's what they should do.
I would agree. Sometimes the nostalgia will actually hold a thing back. It'll either hold it back or you're like, oh, okay, it's only fueled by nostalgia. There's only one foundation for this thing, and it is nostalgia. I agree. This is the perfect blend. They bring it back just enough for like a great callback, but it stands on its own. I mean, honestly, it could have been its own movie.
Well, and what I like, I think, for me, is that it makes sense that it takes this long to get to it because they've weaved that into the story. Like Zoolander 2 comes to mind, where it's like there was, 15-something years in between the first and the second movie. And yeah, all the characters have aged up a little bit, but for the most part, they kind of just get back into the same hijinks as the first movie, to the point where it's almost like, why is this being made? Anchorman 2, kind of similar, the gap not quite so big. Here, it's been 35 years. So if you're going to come back to this and you're going to have the same characters, you're going to have to explain why Tom Cruise is this much older and what Maverick's been up to. And make it a focal point and do it well. I'm like spoiler-free review. I had somebody ask, like, did they make Tom Cruise more than a two-dimensional, like, nobody? Absolutely. That's one of the best parts. What they do with his character is great. There's a plot. Like, look, the first one was fine, but what was the plot? There was the premise, their training. But was there a plot? Yeah, not really. They just, like, they're training. And you're like, what are they training for? And they're like, no, that is why they're here. It's only training. That's it. It's the Top Gun school. The movie's called Top Gun. You want Top Gun? Here's Top Gun. This is like, there's a goal. And they set it early. And you're like, the movie's so much better now that we, like, have focus. It's great. It's great. Go see it, please. If I can help it earn $1 billion, then I will. Well, as my brother mentions, my family had them, so my brother and sister watch it for the first time because we're going to go watch it when they're up here next week. And, they both thought it was pretty good. They had never seen it before, so for me, when we rewatched it a few weeks ago, it was like, how well does this hold up? Because the last time I had seen Top Gun was probably a decade plus ago. And I was like, it's still pretty good. It's a little noticeable there's no women pilots. For example, there's a few things that are kind of like, oh yeah, artifact of the era, but obviously they are in this new one because they had to. Overall, I'm excited to go see it. It's rare you see something get this universal praise, and maybe it's just because the expectations were lower. I'm not sure, but I'm excited to see it.
Universal praise, but like, I would say even like politically, I've noticed like conservatives, liberals, everybody's just like, yeah, it's great. It's great. It is. It's really good. Oh, look who decided to show up. Wow. Was the door unlocked enough for you, Cody?
I want the entire audience to know that Sean walked up approximately 45 seconds before he went live.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't have much of a leg to
I'm
stand.
sorry. Was I on time or not?
I mean, you're pushing it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Which one of the four of us has been on time every time? Which two of the four of us?
I also want to point out...
Yeah. Who had every reason to be the one who was fucking late today.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
I just want to point out that Sean also lives, 15 steps from the recording studio, which helps his progress a lot.
Whatever. Was I on time or not?
There's that old maxim. It goes something like, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Yeah, exactly. I was 15 minutes early.
Usually for a broadcast, you'd like people to be there a little bit before 45 seconds before start time.
Yeah, Dave just
but
punched
you would
Cody.
Also like you to be there.
I'm not listening to him.
45 minutes after. That's not great. So
you don't have to listen to him. He punked you simply by being 15 minutes early.
He was 15 minutes late last week.
I know, but
So
now
he's
you're late. Now
averaging
you
me-
gave him shit. Now you're late.
Well, now I'll come 35 minutes early next week, and my average will be better.
All right,
That's right.
Okay, that's fair. Let's
in
jump into
the
this.
aggregate, time will be fantastic. All right, there's no
wait.
time to waste. There's
Okay.
zero time to waste. So no
That's
more
fair.
fucking around. Let's get to
Stop
it. By
it.
the way, what? Don't interrupt me. I'm trying to fucking segue. So last week, if you happen to miss it, we're doing a tournament style. 64 the best TV sitcoms of all time. Mostly all sitcoms. The definition's loose. Whatever. We got through only 10 of the first round matchups last week. We're trying to get to the other 22 this week. We're going to have to go a little quicker.
All right.
Then next week's going to be the second round, quarters, semis, etc.
We're off to a bad start.
If there's a tie, you people in chat get to help break them. So if we go 2-2, you get to be the deciding vote. Your presence here is important. We had 2 ties last week. I'm sure we're going to have even more ties in the later rounds because there's so many good shows. Okay? If you didn't watch last week's show, you should probably go check it out, especially if you're not watching this live when you can go to last week's recording and get to this point. Okay?
Spoilers, don't look at the bracket. Be bad.
Yeah, you can see it right now. There's spoilers on it. Golden Girls is on it. Spoilers.
Also, Maisie woke up at 2:30 a.m., so she's out. What a piece of shit.
Like
What?
out, like dead.
She maybe, but she's not here for this.
It's unclear. We don't know. We haven't seen her for a while.
Okay.
All right, our next first round matchup, a classic and a modern classic, I guess. Sometime it's going to pop up on the screen. Behind it, though, I can see it's the 13 seed Leave It to Beaver and the 52 seed Community.
Go ahead, Dave.
And the weird one, I never cared for Community that much. Like, it was fine, but people freaked out about it. I was like, nah, it's okay. I never really got into it, though.
How far did you make it?
So I watched it kind of intermittently. I didn't, like, watch it straight through. But the characters never made me want to do that.
Well, okay. I hate it. I'm watching Moon Knight. I'm on episode 5, and it's getting good. And you're like, great, yeah, just stick around for 5 of the 6 episodes. It'll eventually get good. So I hate recommending, like, just stick around to, like, season whatever, and it'll... But it is the case with Community. It starts off a little rough. Joel McHale specifically is a piece of shit. But, like, almost you can't even root for him. And he gets better later, where you're like, oh, there is some humanity there. So, well, I want to hear what Cody thinks, though.
I like Dave didn't watch Community a whole lot.
Great. Well,
Couldn't really get into it. Chevy Chase is a piece of shit.
Well, yeah. Well,
I didn't have any interest in watching a show with him in it.
Is it
It was
okay-
just pretty biased, but
Is it okay that they address it in the show once they find out how much of a piece of shit he was?
I think knowing that they did do that, like I thought that's pretty funny.
Okay, good. So they tried. They didn't. I mean, he was kind of an asshole, but then he really took it too
Yeah.
far, and they were like, "Okay, you're done." I think he died from jizzing too much.
Oh,
In the show.
in the finale, or
No, like they killed off his character.
oh, I did not know that they killed.
yeah,
Richard
like
Cavall. Okay.
I think he had. I mean, he's always been an asshole. He did something racist, and they're like, "Yeah, you're done."
probably fair.
And they killed him in a really obnoxious way, which was great.
I do again. This is if you go back to the first episode episode of the series of things. That show spawned, I think, or helped spawn a lot of people's careers, which is why it probably deserves a shit ton of credit. And I know it was in the Parks and Rec, like trying to survive over and over again, and they worked their ass off to keep that show on TV. So just because I didn't watch it, like I have a lot of respect for that show and what they did to keep themselves going. Like Joel McHale, I mean, Joel McHale was pretty, I think, decently well known before that show started.
He's like the big name.
Yeah,
of
he's
that
pretty.
show,
He's
yeah.
pretty fucking famous now. Obviously, there's a really, really famous person who's gone on to do a bunch of things in that show, in Childish Gambino, or
Yep. Alison Brie did.
yeah, Alison
done a
Brie's
lot.
turned into a pretty famous actress. I think John Oliver being in there is really funny.
It is really
in
funny.
hindsight, because Oliver obviously doesn't act a whole lot anymore.
Do you think they have Brie Larson in there too?
Yeah, I was gonna say Brie Larson was in there temporarily, right?
Yeah, like a few episodes,
Like,
just
yeah,
a side
there's, like-
character, but still.
Yeah. So it deserves a lot of credit for all of that. Ken Jeong was in there
Yep.
for a
A
little bit.
lot, a ton.
A lot,
Yeah,
right? And then
Too
he's,
much.
he's
I would
obviously
argue.
Maybe
become
too much, yeah.
a very, very famous person
So,
as well. So like
Community was great, Dave and Cody, because what they really start leaning into is like so many episodes just become genre satire. So they have their Law and Order episode. They have obviously the infamous paintball episodes. They have their Halloween horror episodes, and they do it so well. And it's no surprise. I would even say the funny thing that spawned from this: you have Alison Brie, you have Donald Glover, you have. I mean, does Rick and Morty happen without this show and the success that Dan Harmon has? Maybe, I don't
hard to
know.
say.
You can argue it. So
It's possible.
Yeah. This is tough. We haven't said anything about Leave It to Beaver yet because
No.
it's sort of a relic before all of our times. However,
it's really important.
it's super important to the whole history of television, and the nuclear family and the feel-good morals at the end of episodes all sort of lead back here. And
I hadn't talked much because I'm going to vote for it over Community, unfortunately. And I figured if I was trying to push it through, I could skip over some things I had to say.
it's kind of why I talked about Community a lot.
Yeah.
It's because I think it might be dead.
Dave,
that's
what
why I
are you,
wanted
what
to
are you
give it its
voting
credit.
for here?
I'm voting for Leave It to Beaver. Just what it stood for, how it basically started the genre of sitcom family. I mean, it's saccharine to a painful extent to watch nowadays sometimes, but still it's set up so much, and I think it's actually it's still halfway decent, even if it's too overly the top, simplistic and sweet.
You'll notice I put a click into Community. This is tough because I think Leave It to Beaver deserves a ton of credit for its influence that we just talked about. And it's a show that I didn't even mind watching as a kid. It's light, easy viewing, and sort of ahead of its time, weirdly enough, for how long ago it was. However, I think Community, when it's right, is almost as good as anything on this entire list.
That's
Now,
what I'm saying.
peak Community is probably only 2.5 seasons of its 6, which certainly hurts it and was a reason I was really close on this vote. But I think I'm still going to lean that way and put this as a first thing right to the audience for a tiebreaker.
Good.
So for people who haven't voted yet, this is your chance. We have one in there
Community.
already.
They're gonna.
Man, this is just Michaela's because probably never even heard of Leave It to Beaver, so that's part of it.
It's possible.
Mello, Doug too, so this is great. How people just don't even know what a classic is, much less even seen it.
That's right. Hit them over the head with it. It's tough because it feels like the entire show's run was #Save Community.
You're killing me. My wife is now killing me, so this is great. This is just fantastic.
Even in the middle of when it was really, really good, we're talking different showrunners. The Chevy Chase incident's right in the middle of that stuff, and they worked around it really well considering. But then the last season's kind of because it was on streaming. It's just, oh god, there's so many things. But man, when it works, it's really good.
I like how Dave is dying on this hill despite barely watching either show.
I know.
I can't fucking believe everyone. You're killing me. It's like, Dave, you've seen 3 collective episodes between the 2
That
shows.
is untrue, sir. I've seen plenty of Leave It to Beaver over. I mean, Nick at Night existed when I was a kid, and that was on a lot.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. There's several tough ones coming up. We sort of alluded to them last week, but here we have the number 20 seed, Home Improvement, and the number 45 seed, Third Rock from the Sun. Real quick, as a reminder for people who didn't catch last week, these are seeded only by number of total episodes, ties broken by number of total seasons. So while that's not necessarily a perfect way to do it, it was the only clean metric that wasn't opinion-based. So, 20th, Home Improvement. 45th, Third Rock from the Sun. Go.
Okay, at first glance, this is really, really hard, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think it's pretty easy. Third Rock from the Sun is a really good show. It's actually really funny. I was doing for my class, we actually ended up referring to episodes from Third Rock of the Sun more than once because they're so good in their comedic writing and themes and the whole premise of the outsiders coming in. It's so smart all the time. It's a lot of laughs. But man, Home Improvement, if it's not one of the funniest shows on here, I don't know. And some of the him making funny noises to me nowadays is not as funny as it was at one point, but it's still so solid. The episode to me that sells Home Improvement is when oh my god, what's her name? The wife's name. No one remembers. To be fair, I only would say the husband's. Right? Tim Allen is the husband's name. Okay.
Yeah.
Her father dies, and they handle the grief and the humor so deftly that I was like, dang, this is a really awesome show. So my vote's Home Improvement.
I did not grow up watching Home Improvement. All of that TGIF block that was on, I think that was part of it. Home Improvement was part of it. I don't know. I didn't watch TV on Friday night, so I don't have any nostalgia behind it. Tim Allen, from everything I've heard, is really kind of an asshole. So that is definitely a strike against. And watching it nowadays is not that fun because he's kind of an asshole on this show too. And it never struck me well. Third Rock from the Sun was quirky, kind of ridiculous at times, and that one really struck with me. Even though I didn't watch it all the way through or anything like that. I thought Third Rock from the Sun was a funnier story overall.
I'll give you. I'll disagree on Home Improvement, but I mean, yeah, Third Rock is great. It's so funny, and you have Joseph Gordon-Levitt did something.
Yep.
I would say probably more sustained, but not as big of a flash as Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
It was the hottest thing in the world for
he really was
a few years, and then he didn't want to act anymore.
Yeah,
so
that's did nothing. I'm not saying it's a strike on him, but he chose to do nothing.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Sort of a strange turn for John Lithgow, who's not made by this show by any means, has a long career before it, but for someone like him to become the leading actor in a big sitcom at that point in their career, pretty remarkable when you look back now.
Yeah. Doug brings up, would we have a Toy Story without Tim Allen? And maybe it wouldn't be the same, but
would we have a Toy Story without Tim Allen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Tom Hanks is the other guy.
I agree. I mean, having those two big guys at that time was huge. But clearly my wife gave Jonathan Taylor Thomas a hug so therefore, the contest is over. Folks. Just
move
on.
Third Rock is sharply written, smart, kind of ahead of his time. I don't know how I feel about French Stewart. Generally, I'm annoyed by him.
Yes, agreed.
Home Improvement's one of my favorites in the bracket, so I won't spend a ton of time talking about it right now. It's getting my vote. It's getting Sean's vote.
We'll talk about it more later. What about you, Cody?
I'm gonna vote Home Improvement.
Oh,
I mean,
there you go.
I watch these two shows quite a bit. I think I remember growing up, but if I'm just going off of like the cuff of like which one I watched a lot more, Home Improvement was like a family, like that was the show when it was on.
Yeah.
You sat and watched it.
There's so many different dynamics that work in Home, but we'll get to it. I'll say my last story from Third Rock from the Sun. They spend a whole episode nursing, I think, a squirrel back to health, and then they let it out into the wild, and an eagle comes and picks it up. It's like, has always shook
A
out to
bit
me.
that I feel like has been redone in other stuff.
Yeah.
but
Yes, it has.
I'm
Yeah.
fairly certain that's where I originally
They had
saw that.
those little moments of dark humor that were, again, sort of ahead of their time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to make of this matchup, and I don't think we have to spend a ton of time on it because
Sucks.
only one of us has watched Veep.
This sucks. Can I just use this as a time to encourage everyone to watch?
You have 35 seconds. Go.
Veep is like the meanest TV show I have ever watched. And for a sick reason of thinking that people being really mean to each other is really, really funny. I enjoy that. What also kind of sets up Veep pretty well is fuck if it doesn't seem like they wrote that show and then the actual government in this country started to really just follow the lead of how fucking stupid people who are elected are. And so that's pretty much it.
I've actually heard
There
people
is-
talk about that in writing and TV shows. They're like, our real life scenarios making it really hard
Yes.
to write for
And
TV.
Veep was ahead of that, so it didn't have to like fall into the like SNL's problem with like parodying Trump and all that stuff. It's like, well, this isn't really funny because he's more insane than you can even make him.
Yeah.
Veep was being insane and doing a lot of this crap of like how dysfunctional a cabinet is before that came into power. I mean, it's got some, making fun of Clinton stuff and Bush stuff and stuff like that. But it's not going to win right now, and that's fine. But I just encourage people to go out and watch it now that its series is completed. It is very, very good. And the one thing I'll say that really stands out is I don't know how many people have seen Sam Richardson and stuff. He shows up a couple of seasons into Veep, and he is one of the like funniest things that sits in there. And he's gotten a lot more famous since that show's been on, and he just really stands out.
Are you actually voting Veep though?
Yeah, I'm going to vote for Veep.
Okay,
But I know
well,
you're all gonna, I know you're all going to vote Married with Children. That's fine.
No, well, I just wanted because I know Married with Children. I actually don't care for it that much,
I don't.
but I know it's like super important. It was extremely highly watched. So now I don't know what to do.
So yeah, that was the thing. Is I never cared for Married with Children that much either. It was supposed to be, that and The Simpsons were the changing TV in the early 90s after there was all these, family values shows on in the 80s. And I like the fact that edgier comedies were able to get a platform. I've never watched Veep is the problem. I've heard Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I think, is the star in that one,
She's
who's
the
really
lead,
good
yeah.
in
She's
it.
won like 1 million awards.
Yeah,
too.
She's fantastic, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind watching it. Just I understand Married with Children's importance, so I'm voting it that way.
Yeah, I mean, Veep pulled in multiple Emmys. I mean, she won some. Tony Hale won some. I mean, there's I think Hugh Laurie has a hilarious run on that show as well, and so.
I mean,
that's fine.
I do like Tony Hale a lot. Like
He's also
like
really good. In
Really
that show.
good in everything he's in,
Yeah.
no matter
Yeah.
what silly role he's asked to play.
I don't think we've gotten
He's
to Arrested
40.
Development
Yeah.
yet, but if you enjoy him in Arrested Development, he plays a similar type of character that's not
He
as much of
creeps
a
me out in
child.
Arrested Development, but that's okay.
He will have some similar humor, but not creep you out in Veep.
So my thing with Married with Children is I never really liked it. Like, you want to show about people who just hate each other?
Well, that's what Veep is.
Not really. Well, that's fine, but I know it was so important. I probably am gonna give it to Married with Children, but not be thrilled about it.
yeah.
We talked last week, and I didn't think about this until afterwards, about how there's only a couple of examples of people with multiple entries on this list. Guess what? Julia Louis-Dreyfus is another one, because she also has to be considered one of the principal characters in the show that's coming up in the very next matchup.
I could make one of her shows isn't on here, but it had a good run on CBS, The New Adventures of Old Christine.
Mm-hmm.
She's probably a top 3 TV actress in history.
Yeah, I think she's somehow underrated.
Yeah.
Yep, it's true.
She also has a run on Curb as well because she guest stars on that. She is so fucking good on TV. It is really unbelievable.
This was longer than 35 seconds. Thank you, Doug, for playing that.
That's right. Married with Children, by the way, is the 5 seed. Now, again,
Yeah.
just on number of episodes, which is going to show you a flaw coming up right now when we have our next matchup. The 28 seed Seinfeld up against the number 37 seed Step by Step.
Never watched Step by Step. Just give it to Seinfeld.
Excuse me.
I could
I
go-
won't spend
Excuse
a lot of
me.
time on this. Step by Step was really good. Seinfeld is one of the most influential TV shows of all time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but that's fine. Let's give.
You can have
Step by
35
Step
seconds for
its due,
Step
though.
by Step.
Step by Step. So they had this TGIF block, which Dave was busy. I don't know, doing like his. Oh God, I ruined the joke.
I was literally out front shooting baskets. Like that's
no,
my.
I'm thinking
my
that
entire
the abacus. Abacus. Thank you. Abacus
What?
on Friday nights rather than
What?
TGIF. Step by Step was, I think, the funniest show that was there. A lot of great characters. It sort of had the thing of Family Matters where it became more and more about like Cody and his misadventures with drinking the Slurpee and whatever. But it was still really good. And yeah, they had a Disney. I'm like a sucker for the Disneyland episodes, I guess. There's a lot of really good stuff in Step by Step.
Every
and
night show had that. It's so weird.
No. Oh, like a Disneyland episode?
Oh yeah, everyone did.
Oh, yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. They all go on like Full House did. Like everybody has these
Roseanne
on location
did it.
ones.
Yeah.
Roseanne did, and their whole thing was how poor they were.
Yeah, it's true. We'll get there.
In one of these shows, somebody actually pulls the Excalibur, and I thought that was the coolest thing just to see. Like, oh, what would that be like if I went to Disneyland? Anyways, I like Step by Step a lot, but I know Seinfeld is super influential. It's too bad. I think Step by Step could have at least gone a couple rounds, but it got fucked in the first.
I think Patrick Duffy's character is one of those like quintessential TV dads. Kind of like he's not going to be mentioned the same as like a Tim Taylor who we just talked about or a Danny Tanner from Full House. Like there's others that are going to come to mind and some of the classic ones too, but he's one of the first guys I picture when I think of like the old school TV dads who are just kind of there to be supportive and they kind of hold the family together. I don't know. I mean, I liked Step by Step, but to me, I just can't over Seinfeld. I can't even really consider it.
We'll talk more about Seinfeld soon, I think.
Yeah.
Man, Step by Step had a great theme song though. The
At
intro
some
sequence?
point, that's going to be a tournament or a listing of some, or like a tier list or whatever we do with it, like just TV theme shows, TV themes. There's going to be a thing that we get to at some point because
Dave, it went step by step, day by day, and then it continued. But that was the beginning.
A terrible song.
No, it's really good, and they were in like a theme park.
It was probably your interpretation of it that made it terrible.
No, that could
You suck at singing.
The real one
Yeah.
was actually really good, but the
You
lost
suck
in
at- you suck at
translation
singing.
is what
Thank
Dave is saying.
Thank you, Cody.
What do you have on your Cody?
I yield my time because Seinfeld's obviously going to win. It's my favorite show of all time.
Yeah.
So
All time, huh? Interesting.
I
Oh, it's not even that
dude,
good.
I fucking love that show.
I love it too. But
The 12 seed Friends against the 53 seed Gilligan's Island. This doesn't seem like a fair fight.
I don't think Gilligan's Island is actually that good.
I don't think it is either. I'm sorry
have
for people who
35
liked it.
seconds?
Yeah.
Can I have 35 seconds?
Yeah.
Sure.
Does
Take
I
your-
how much
take
you
your
hate
2
it?
minutes.
They each had it. That seems fair.
Friends is one of the worst shows ever made. It is boring. The TV characters are horribly unrelatable. They're all terrible people. I hate everything about them. It is not funny. I do not understand why this show is any good. Gilligan's Island actually is pretty funny if you watch it. The situations they make are ludicrous, but it actually still holds up some comedy even after all these years. Friends has already aged worse than Gilligan's Island. There.
Dave read like a Forbes magazine article that was like Friends is actually X, and he was like,
What?
"Yeah, you know what?
Friends
I
should
do
be
hate
Friends should
Friends."
be canceled. I
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
hate Friends now.
I have railed against Friends since this show has started. Since our podcast has started, I've said how much I hate this show. I think it's awful.
So we have a lot of differences, but with TV, we've had a lot like Big Bang Theory, 2.5 Men, like we're totally on. I think Friends is great and at times extremely funny. Not always, and some of the gags definitely do not age as well as maybe they were back then. But like, yeah, between the influential and the comedy, I think Friends is really good.
I have never actually audibly laughed at anything I've ever seen on Friends. and I give it a lot
That's
of-
just
That's
you
false.
being
That's
like,
just
I'm not
false.
No.
going to do it.
No,
Just
I want
No way.
like
No
when
way.
this show was on in the 90s, I was
There's no way.
give Friends -1. Do that. I just don't. Even when it was on live, I remember trying like it being on. Like I think it was on around the same time as Seinfeld, and I just didn't get why people found it funny. David Schwimmer is like wants me to make me pull my hair out listening to him speak. That's
I
probably
don't love him, but I think he's okay. That's like I don't know this animosity.
If your point is he's the worst of the main 6 characters, you're absolutely
Oh no,
yeah,
Matthew,
I would agree with that too.
That's fine.
Matthew Perry is actually way worse.
No,
he's
no.
my favorite. He's the
best character on the show.
Yeah,
That's a bad sign for the show.
Couple things.
I vote for Friends.
Yeah, Friends is gonna be 3-1.
okay.
So I railed against
God.
Friends back in the day because for 2 reasons: 1, pettiness, and 2, because it was up directly against Whose Lines It Anyway on the Thursday night like primetime slots. So I was always like, "Everyone's watching Friends, and not watching the real Comedy Star." I've kind of softened on that in my old age now. I will say a couple of things. 1, Friends, outstanding theme song. I should resent it for having to sing in an 8th grade choir, but it's really, really good. It's catchy. It's fun. I think there's too many stupid characters on Friends for me to want to vote for this in too many more rounds. They're almost offensively stupid in many regards.
Only one, right? Though?
And as the
Phoebe's fucking
if
stupid.
they're not the
That's
pioneer
one.
of will they won't they, but they sure rammed that ship through the fucking harbor into the inland, down a volcano shaft, into the center of the fucking earth. So I'm gonna have a hard time voting for Friends in future rounds, but hugely influential, can be quite funny, a pop culture mainstay. I have to get as my vote.
I'm willing to vote
Sean,
for
were they on
influential,
break?
man, but not that Phoebe. Ugh,
Were they on
God,
a break?
that character's horrible. And I like Lisa Kudrow, I think her name is. I actually like her as an actress. I hated Phoebe.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say she's
Yeah,
actually
Phoebe-
one that kind of grates on me.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's just her character. Like Lisa Kudrow's fine, but Phoebe is like,
Yeah.
It's amazing that there's 2 characters that are just dumb as fucking rocks on that show.
Technically speaking, they were on a break. Yes.
You mean there were six people dumb as fucking rocks on that show?
Joey
That's
actually gets less dumb as the show goes on.
That is also true.
That's true.
They actually write him to not be an idiot, and he's actually, as the show gets worse, he's actually kind of a competent character.
The
funny
ships
like
actually
it's
get
the
really
show.
good, except there was one I really hate, but we'll get to that later.
Joey and Rachel.
Yes. It's
That's
like
easy.
how is this
The
a
Good
thing?
Place actually made a joke about that in one of its episodes.
Good.
I don't think this is going to be all that close, but there's definitely a case for this still being one of the harder first round matchups. Just
It is a
because
hard
of
round.
the status of the 2 that are here. This is the 21 seed, The Office, again, number of episodes, versus the number 44 seed, 30 Rock.
I've thought 30 Rock had like a couple of okay episodes, and then after that, they went through the same thing that Kimmy Schmidt went through, where it's just like too weird, too often. It never got me. I never really liked the show that much.
Dave, as much as I disagree with you on Friends, I'm sorry. Like I'm even in a position where I'm like, clearly I'm in the wrong because people love 30 Rock.
I don't
So
get it.
I'm not going to say like it's not good. I will say it never connected with me, and I tried multiple times. I got a couple laughs here and there. I actually like Tina Fey's character quite a bit, and I just like nothing else that's going on around her, and I don't know why, but I just can't connect with it. And then on the other side, you have The Office, which is like maybe one of the greatest TV shows ever made. So like, for me, it's easy. I wish I had more to say about 30 Rock, but I just don't.
I can't understand. Like, you know what made the worst was Tracy Morgan's character on 30 Rock. Like, it was just too weird, too off the wall, too like, what the hell am I watching on him do?
You don't like Dr. Spaceman?
Dr. Spaceman was probably the
Spaceman.
funniest thing in the entire show.
Spaceman.
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 But The Office, that was God, it's broke ground. It was hilarious. Michael Scott, great. Office is absolute vote.
Yeah. I'll say more about The Office later.
Yep, me too.
Real quick, so I can edit this page that just came in. I will say only this. I loved seasons 2 through 4 of 30 Rock. I really did. I couldn't finish season 6 because I'm not often in alignment with Dave on this. I can get kind of weird on my shows, but it reached a point where even I was like, this is too silly.
Yep.
Part of what made this so successful for me in the earlier going was it was sort of grounded in its lunacy. And you had the characters like a Liz Lemon who are like letting all this weirdness bounce off of them, but they're the star. And it's sort of like on them, and then they deal with the wackiness. And then everything became wackiness. So I never finished the show because it got to the point where I was like, I can't, this is too much. So I had to vote for The Office as well. I think I probably like 30 Rock at its peak more than The Office, but The Office is just too important.
I will just say my last thing on The Office is how I felt about Kimmy Schmidt's character in The Office seems to be 30 Rock, how you feel about the whole thing.
Yeah.
She was too dumb and too silly.
Yes.
And I'm like, there's no way in a show that is relatively grounded, Well, you're giving me a thing. What is it?
No, I'm like, I just got my. I didn't actually vote for The Office yet.
Oh.
I'm going to.
I'm sorry. I
oh.
just assumed
I
because
just
you love
assume
the
you
show.
you just.
Okay, you have 30 seconds, Cody.
35 seconds.
No, I'm good. I watched 30 Rock. Honestly, just like Chris, there was a couple really good stretches in there but I think they just ran out of shit to do, and they didn't want to stop it. They were in the block with The Office, all on NBC, and they ran that shit into the ground.
That's going to set up a really tough second round matchup.
Is it?
Probably the hardest of the second round.
The Office
matchups.
is going to beat Friends.
It's going to win, but I just mean as far as like the titans of the industry, those are two of the bad. I'm not saying it's
And
not
then
hard for
the
us.
winner's going to run into Seinfeld. That's actually a really shitty little.
There's a
spot.
weird quadrant in the bracket. It was going to happen.
Yeah, you could have some finals matchups in this, and it's all in one little corner.
Yep, all in one. It's
Oh,
not
you
even
did
a
put Flight of
quadrant.
the Concords in.
I did put Flight of the Concords in because multiple people requested it. It's the number 63 seed up against the number 2 seed. Cheers. I'll get out of the way real quick so I can deal with this for work. I'm voting for Cheers. Look, Flight of the Concords can be tremendously funny. Some of the songs are so catchy. It's fucking Cheers.
Yeah.
So let me just go ahead and say that. Go
Okay,
for it.
so yours is
Talk up Flight because it's really good, but I'm
Okay.
not ever voting for it.
Let me just say it was an honor for Flight to even make the bracket because they're not going to go past it. But seriously, like they're a pretty recent show. They came out of nowhere, seemingly.
It's a very interestingly like I don't know who the target audience for Flight honestly is. Like for it to survive, it was a couple seasons on HBO, if I remember right. And I used to think it was really weird, and then I was like, oh, this is like super entertaining because I'm into like musical comedy and stuff like that. I mostly just wanted it to get in the bracket because I thought it would be nice to talk about that. It's a good show. It will not take you very long to get through the series if you want to like binge watch something pretty quickly. It's worth the time. But yeah, I mean, Cheers is, I don't know, pretty clearly top 5 team.
I think we'll talk more about Cheers later.
Yeah, I'm not
it's
going to get that deep into it.
So goddamn good.
I actually Jermaine Clement is one of my favorite unknown underrated actors.
Mhm.
I actually love him in most things he's in. Men in Black 3, I thought he was fantastic in that. Yeah, I actually
Dave,
like Men in Black 3.
I
Nobody else
almost
does.
want to recommend Legion to you, even though I don't think you'll like it, and he's not in it that much. But he's like the standout character from Legion.
Yep.
He's this weird psychic that is like you meet later, and he has he sings songs. Which so who does Flight of the Concords?
It's Brett McKenzie and Jermaine Clement are the two.
The actors, but
Yeah.
so Noah Hawley does Legion, he's like the writer director, and he has Jermaine Clement, and there are songs in it. So I was just wondering, like, is this like a spiritual sequel to Flight of the Concords? Maybe not, but it's cool. Yeah, he's great. The other guy seems good too. I know more about Clement. But.
The guy who I believe created it with them, I think, worked with what's his face on Bruno Ollie G show and stuff like that on HBO.
Okay.
I think those two created the show with him as like the main director when they were doing the show.
Have you seen What We Do in Shadows, Dave? The movie, not the TV
No,
show.
I haven't.
Jermaine Clement's also in the movie. He's also fucking hilarious in the
So
movie.
good, so funny.
I'm telling you, he's good.
Yeah.
I love that even Michaela is going for Cheers, even though she's voted against some of the older
Old
shows.
shows.
But
She loves Cheers, man.
And Ted Danson.
We haven't talked to we'll talk about it more, but man, that show was really funny in a lot.
Was really funny.
Before, all right?
Yeah.
Like, sorry, Flight.
Like
I'm
I
glad
said,
you made it.
Like I
It was
said,
an honor for you to be here.
I just wanted to get on there because I think it deserved to get talked about.
This was like an 8-0 Cheers with all of the chat in it too. Like nobody voted. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's not the Flight of Concords that plucky.
Flight, look at Flight's like 20 episodes.
Yeah.
There's only like 20 episodes of the show. It's not like it ran for a long time. It was just really funny when it was on.
Look, I'm going to make this easy. I have never seen Laverne and Shirley. I have seen Three's Company. I think it's funny. I like John Ritter. I don't know how far either of these would go, but my vote's Three's Company.
Our second Suzanne Summers show, so I guess you could technically include her in the same list, although I don't really think she's quite the star of either of these.
Isn't she like a criminal now, too? Like,
We don't talk about that.
okay.
They're both so similar in a lot of ways. I mean, they're different, obviously, but like they're from the same era, and I'm just going to give it to Three's Company because of the theme song.
Three's Company too.
Knock on my door.
Everything Sean just said about Three's Company, I can flip that and say about Laverne and Shirley. I've never seen Three's Company. I've actually watched Laverne and Shirley. It was a spin-off of Happy Days, which I thought was an odd way to go to spin them off. But I've never watched Three's Company. Laverne and Shirley had its decent moments, so I'll go there.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. I liked Happy Days, so I'm okay with that vote, Dave.
Yep.
I have no horse in this race at all. I don't give a fuck.
I've watched
It's
0
losing
minutes
next
of either
round.
of these shows.
Okay.
0 minutes. So do whatever you want. I don't care.
Chat's got nothing on here, so
Cody abstains 2-1.
I mean, I've never watched a second of either show.
Okay.
I barely can tell you anything about them.
It's not going to make it past Cheers, so we'll have a quick
It
one in the
doesn't
second
matter,
round.
exactly.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and just put that in there right now. Anybody want to vote for Three's Company over
No.
Cheers?
No,
Can we move like the Friends down to face Cheers and then put Three's
I
Company
know,
against the
right?
Office?
But
So,
look, this
like,
is why I let the numbers decide, so I wasn't
Yeah.
trying to manipulate matchups and stuff.
I
They're going to
just-
fall in a certain way.
eventually we need to talk about Cheers.
We will.
But okay.
Well,
Yeah.
it's gonna beat whoever's in that next
But
match.
Cheers has to feel good. The first one in the next round.
Yeah, I mean, they're racing through the bracket right now.
Okay, Roseanne.
All right, here's a tougher one, I think.
yeah, it's a tough one.
Shows from the same era once again, but sort of very different in their tone and their subject matter. We have the 15 seed Roseanne against the number 50 seed Wonder Years.
If you want to talk about some weird fucking episodes late in its run, I would like to point out that Roseanne got fucking weird, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, yeah, I did.
They
Last
had
episode.
nothing left to write for that show.
Didn't they? Something really weird happened. Like someone
No.
died.
It was. I got it. I got the whole thing. It was basically like the last few episodes of the last season. They won the lottery and all their money troubles were over. And there was like this whole different theme to a show. And in the last episode, they revealed that no, it was all fake. John Goodman's character actually had a heart attack and died. And everyone was like coping with it. And it's like, oh God.
Yes. And even before that episode, that stretch of episodes, I still think it had gotten pretty fucking weird.
Yeah.
That's all. I don't know what else
And then
to
they
say.
brought it back a sequel, but
Well, they brought
he
it.
was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's the star because Roseanne is fired.
Yeah, we don't talk about the Connors. We're just judging this on Roseanne
No, I
because
know.
the Connors was a disaster. The Roseanne, in addition to being weird at the very end, Roseanne also has the weird double Becky problem,
Oh yeah.
where there's two different actresses, one of which is Sarah Chalk, that keep flipping back and forth. As the first few seasons where it's the same, and then it switches between them twice, not once, twice, but between like the season 6 and the end of the run. So that's a little bit weird. And it gets to the point where they even start acknowledging it. It's kind of funny, admittedly, but it's also like, what are you doing?
I think I didn't like it. I wasn't quite the right age for it. I've gone back and seen some stuff. It's pretty funny. Wonder Years is like fine. I watched more of it, but I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I'll probably give it to Roseanne. I know it was like a cultural phenomenon for.
I think when I look
long
back
time.
at Wonder Years, I'm like kind of surprised. I guess maybe just the scope of how I watched it, that it was like a network TV show and not like a Disney Channel show. If that makes
Yeah.
any sense. Like
Yeah.
I look at it as like, oh yeah, it was made for the Disney Channel more so than like I'm assuming it's ABC, since I think I did watch it on the Disney.
Well, there was no
Channel.
laugh track, right? In the
No.
Wonder Years.
No,
It was just
It
like
had
straight.
It had the narrator.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why I'm saying it's weird. Maybe it's totally fine. I just
I actually, Roseanne actually was a decent show to watch, but Wonder Years, maybe it was my age watching it because I felt like I was like Kevin's age growing up with him watching that. Maybe it's because Danica McKellar is just a beautiful person, and she's just a beautiful woman to watch on TV. But I love the Wonder Years. I thought it was fantastic all the way through. So I'm voting that.
I have a hard time with this because we're going to get to this problem with the Cosby Show, and I think the very last first round matchup, we're trying to sort of keep this separate from what's happened with some of the real life counterparts here. It's a little tough to ignore that Fred Savage already had a couple different allegations against him and then got fired from the reboot for more allegations.
Yep.
Oh, I did not know that.
In a close
I didn't
race,
either.
that's probably going to be what tips me towards Roseanne. I'm with Dave, where the Wonder Years had that kind of feel-good stuff going for it, but
You want to talk about, allegations and controversies? I mean, Roseanne, not
There's
great
that too.
either, so.
yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. So they negate each other.
I guess the idea in my head, there's this dissonance because Roseanne was always kind of abrasive. That was her comedic style, even when she landed the sitcom in the first place. And
Yeah.
Fred Savage, of course, is supposed to be the goody two shoes guy because that's the character in the show, and he's not.
Yeah.
But it's a fair point. I mean, they could both kind of take the merits here, and I don't know if I like their chances to go more than one round either way.
How about the dad in Seventh Heaven while we're talking about it? That's
Yeah,
wild, right?
There's that too.
He's a
There's-
priest, great father. Turns out he's
Yeah.
like a child molester in real
Yeah,
life.
There's a lot of things. Seventh Heaven would have made it if we had considered hour-longs, but we didn't.
Yeah. Anyways, Roseanne, right?
Where are we at here?
Is
David
anyone-
on Wonder
yeah, I'm voting
Years,
Roseanne.
3-1 Roseanne.
It's weird.
Okay.
I guess I
All
just
right.
wanted to point out that it was insane at the end, but sorry, Dave.
Yeah. All right. We're moving along.
we were told to go quicker.
Yeah, I know.
Can we just not even vote on this? Like, just move it on. 4-0.
Is anybody voting Two Broke Girls?
No,
Anybody want 35 seconds?
I have things to say about How I Met Your Mother. I'll say it later.
Yeah, I will
so.
bitch about How I Met Your Mother's problems in the next round.
Yeah.
And I guess I have to.
There are many of them.
I actually like both leads in Two Broke Girls, but it's the same formulaic.
It's such a bad show.
I would actually say I don't know. I do like the leads too, so maybe it's funny, but I don't know it. And
I remember watching Two Broke Girls pilot in Vegas because CBS has a thing where you can go watch pilots before they get on TV and review them and all that. And I remember watching the pilot and I was like, oh, this show might be kind of cool. And then like the premise just never advanced past what it was. And I was like, well, that could get old probably in 16 episodes, which it did.
It was on
which sucks because I really like Kat Dennings. I like her humor
too.
a lot, but
it's pulling a huge number. Or it was.
It got to be a pretty fucking big show because somehow CBS tends to churn big numbers on its media shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speaking of How Much Mother.
All right.
CBS
so dead.
Outside of How I Met Your Mother, I don't know another CBS show that I like have ever conversed with someone else that they watch frequently. Like I hear that CBS pulls these amazing numbers. I'm like, I talk to people that I know and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I don't watch that show. Like consistently. I don't understand how they get such big numbers.
Yeah, well.
It's kind of sad because we're not going to do this. It's silly. We'll go by the normal order, but like How I Met Your Mother's going to win the next round and then get smoked by Cheers, I think. But we'll see when the time comes.
When we want to talk about it.
We do.
This one's interesting.
Ted Danson's getting a lot of shit in our channel all of a sudden.
Ted Danson's awesome.
That's
blackface. So that was
I don't even want to acknowledge Mike because it's weird, but yeah.
So Happy Days and Arrested Development. I actually really fucking love Happy Days.
Happy Days is the 7 seed, by the way.
I still think Happy Days is funny.
And even with the extra season, Arrested Development is 58.
Can I keep going back to the holy shit they did weird fucking things at the end of the show?
No kidding.
Yeah, well,
I mean, the pioneer for that.
Where you jump the shark from? When
does should have Happy Days actually ended? I just want to know how many episodes should it actually have gone.
I'm gonna research the jump the shark episode.
You can lop off at least a third of this.
You can lop off a part before they'll jump the shark. I think a little bit.
I think so. I think that was like the last straw of sorts.
I think Happy Days is gonna win anyway. Here.
Every episode I've seen of Happy Days, though, I did not watch the Jump the Shark episode.
It was the fifth season.
Maybe it was okay. Maybe it was actually a fine moment. And now it's just...
It wasn't.
There's a lot of... every time I watch Happy Days, I laugh. It's just like, it's solid. I don't know if I can point to like a specific moment. Arrested Development, I know it's genius, and there's so many jokes within jokes, and you have to watch it multiple times to get everything. I also think it's a little bit pretentious. I think a little bit it is not as smart as it thinks it is, just a little bit.
It's not supposed to be.
And I don't know. Lots of big people, though.
Dave, you had dumb characters. Arrested Development is filled with fucking stupid characters. So do you hate this show?
I love Arrested Development.
Well, they're all stupid. Why do you not hate them?
Career makers for so many people, for sure.
Yes.
When it is clicking, it's clicking a lot. I know Maisie loves Arrested Development. And I like it, but like it's against Happy Days. Like I'm voting Happy Days.
And cultural zeitgeist, both of these are huge in their own rights. Different times, it's hard to compare the two, but both have spawned endless references and like, I don't know, that's tough to differentiate between the two. I'm sort of with you where Arrested Development was also had too many dumb characters for my liking at times. And that's tough because like you're trying to root for the Bluths, but at the same time, half the Bluths are the biggest assholes in the show.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, am I rooting for this, or am I just trying to root for like Michael and his son to get the hell out of here and live a good life by themselves?
But that was part of the fun, is that you were rooting against them, and the stuff that happened to them was totally deserved. And so I was okay with this horrible stuff happening to this dumb family while they had witty, quick humor. Arrested Development has had a very short run of peak, but this is like the length of time like Happy Days had versus bright, shining bright versus light.
Yeah. And look, a lot of people really like, and I'm not trying to hate on Arrested Development. I think it is good. Just not as good as like there's a lot of people who say this is my favorite show. In my old office, like everybody was obsessed with this show. They would have watch parties where they watch it multiple times just to catch all the jokes.
I really wish that Arrested Development's first, second, and third season had come out, I don't know, in like 2018 or so, given that there's a lot of, commentary on the different classes of things and stuff like that. And I do wonder if it would have survived longer because its revival obviously didn't do very well. They had to dive into a very different direction. They couldn't necessarily pick right back up from where they were. It would have been a little awkward to do that 10 years later. So I think it got robbed of kind of advancing through some of the jokes and the commentary it was making. Then again, it was facing cancellation all the time, and they made infinite jokes within the show about the fact that they were going to get canceled, and that was, to me, really, really funny. There's an episode where they're looking through all the pantries for stuff, and all of them are empty because they're making a joke that they don't have money for the budget of the show to have set dressing, and like shit like that. I know it's not like the point of the plot of the show, but it was really, really funny that they wrote some of that stuff in. I think a lot of people who I think were on the writing and staff and directing staff of Arrested Development also went on to do a lot of other stuff in TV along with the cast.
I hate that this is the matchup because I think the first few seasons of Happy Days before the Fonz became a superhero and a god of some sort was phenomenal television. I thought it was great. I thought it was funny. I thought it was poignant. It was that like, here's this 50s nostalgia show with a little bit of a twist on it. I thought it was great, but Arrested Development is the most quotable show on this whole list, and to this day still do. So I'm voting Arrested Development, even though I love Happy Days.
I'm going to say Happy Days, but Arrested Development is very good.
Yeah,
I'm voting for Arrested Development, so the chat should stop arguing about Ted Danson.
Well, you don't know what.
Well, that's all Mike. No one's
I thought he already did his vote.
No, I was putting Sean's in, so I assumed it was still Happy Days. This is another one of those, we mentioned this earlier, I forget which matchup specifically, but it's like, man, if this wasn't a first-round matchup, Arrested Development would be advancing for me in a lot of them. But at the end of the day, I didn't ever finish it because I ran into the same problem I have with Almost Sunny, where if a lot of these characters are sort of bad and you're rooting against them and bad things deservedly happen to them, and it is kind of funny when it does, it's not really my thing. And Happy Days at its peak, man, again, the problems it has down the stretch and getting way too Fawn-centric and stupid, like, I understand, but man, it's talking about like a capturing of Americana. And this is one spot where at the very least I'm like, the seeding kind of worked. As unfortunate as this first round matchup is for Arrested Development, this is one time where its lack of episodes rightfully is costing it by throwing it into a matchup against a juggernaut like this.
Yeah.
And again, that's not the best metric, but in this spot I'm like, yeah, like Arrested Development, if that stayed on the air for 6 seasons, it wouldn't be in this spot.
I'm assuming that episode total includes its shit on Netflix too. So like, it probably should have been even lower down.
Should have been.
Because that's an extra. And I actually don't even think the fourth season is as horrendous as people make it out to be. I could not finish the fifth one. I still have never watched it.
I couldn't finish the fourth season. Like, I tried watching, like, this is not.
And there was pieces of the fourth season that I thought were really funny, but like they did shoot it in kind of a weird way.
Yeah.
Chat, we need your answers.
So
so
far it's seeming like Arrested Development, but I'm counting one vote.
Courtney voted Arrested Development, which makes sense. That's her and I like our go-to show.
It's 2-1 Happy Days.
So, Mike is only voting for Happy Days because he's never seen Arrested Development. Anything you say from now on is null and void, Mike. Sorry, you didn't even watch it.
So
this is our last chance. It is 2-1 Happy Days.
Well,
Unless the close chat tie, in which case I'm going to blow everything up. All right, well.
All right, I can't even do it. Man, this hurts.
Maisie would have voted Arrested Development, but I don't think it matters.
Well, in spirit, can you give her that vote? And then if Michaela pays attention and votes, well, that doesn't help.
I think Michaela would like based on what I know of Michaela, she would like Happy Days more. Maisie would have voted for Arrested Development. Even if you put both of those in, it's still Happy Days.
Does Maisie just like every show where people are really mean to each other?
Oh yeah, she loves it. Yeah. That's why you guys are like kindred spirits.
You probably should have her watch Veep.
So I just need Maisie lives down here now. I'll just have her come over and we can watch Arrested Development together. It's fine.
Yeah, she would love that.
Yep, actually she would.
The episode where the mom drives her car through like the restaurant, Maisie cackles in laughter.
Look, some of the lines that Jessica Walters had, rest in peace, Jessica Walters. But some of the lines it's only a banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10? Like her touch is so good.
I think a lot of the other, she gets pretty decent credit for that show. She makes that show.
And
without a fucking doubt,
again,
she makes that
cultural
show.
impact. Talk about quotability. It's one of the highest on the list here.
Yeah,
the quotes you already mentioned, half the things that come out of Job's mouth, like it was important. It's a bad first round draw and it's gone.
Yep.
Next up is a really weird contrast of styles. The last one was more like an old versus new. This is more like just very different shows at their core. It's a 26 seed Full House against the 39 seed Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I don't have to start. Never mind.
I'll go. I don't know a lot about. I've seen actually quite a bit of Brooklyn Nine-Nine because of Maisie. Actually, it seems pretty funny. I thought they handled the whole like everyone hates cops. So we have a show about cops. What do we do? I thought they handled it about as best as they could.
Sure.
That last season.
Except the last season wasn't very good, but given the situation and the delay and the flipping of networks and all that, I get it.
Yeah.
So the ending's
stuff.
supposed to be very good, by the way. I haven't gotten that far in the last season, but I've heard the ending at least sticks to landing.
It ends so fucking well.
Good stuff, and I like a lot of the characters. I never find myself like laughing really hard at Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Now, Full House is hard because these days would I laugh really hard at Full House? Probably not, but the storylines were pretty good. Bob Saget, I cared less about the core family and more about Jesse and Joey. Those were the two, right?
The fake uncles.
Yeah, they made the show for me, and like I don't know, that mattered. And their storylines, or he was like, Jesse got really famous, but like in Japan or something. So they like flew to Japan because his band sucks here, but like caught on there, and it's fun. I think they also go to Disneyland, which is a really
they absolutely do.
What I'll say is about Brooklyn Nine-Nine is I've watched obviously a shit ton of TV, and the one that I think it really stands out for it, I don't know that I've seen many shows have character growth, like logical fucking character growth, as well as Brooklyn Nine-Nine does, of how they actually write just about every single person developing as the show goes on. I'm not saying the plots of every episode are perfect and shit like that, but like their endpoint of Sandberg being a giant, pain in the ass, and Amy's character being kind of stuck up, and them end up being together. Unlike the Friends, they kind of led that they were going to probably pair those two together, and they just fucking did it after like 2.5 seasons. And I thought they worked really well on screen together. Captain Holt is a really interesting TV character with the fact that, he's a police captain who's black and he's gay, and his very dry sense of humor. I do feel like they, even before the whole everyone hates cops thing, I thought they tackled some stuff pretty early on.
Yeah.
That I don't know that it necessarily, because it got canceled from one network and moved to another one, that people gave it credit for. But I just think it deserves a lot of trying to incorporate some stuff and actually writing pretty well around a lot of its very stupid goofiness. Because, again, some people are really stupid on that show.
All right, Chris, what do you think?
It's a tough one. I probably enjoy Brooklyn Nine-Nine more as a show, but I think when you bring up this image of whatever a sitcom is in your head, at least for kids of our generation, Full House is like way up on that list. Now, maybe that's different for people born in different times. I'm not sure. Maybe there's more like Gen Z folks that are more into Brooklyn Nine-Nine because they were too young for Full House, or I don't know. But like for me, considering some of the star power, some of which already exist, like John Stamos was big before Full House, and Bob Saget had a successful stand-up career, but he wasn't on this level until then, which is always funny because of the juxtaposition between Bob Saget himself and Danny Tanner, the squeaky clean TV dad.
As far apart as can be.
The Olsen twins, who somehow, if you had told me that Elizabeth Olsen would be the important one 25 years later, when I was watching Full House as a kid, I would have been like, what the hell? No, there's no way in hell like the Olsen twins are going to be huge stars.
Yeah.
But just looking at all the different careers, we're not going to talk about Fuller House, but Full House as a standalone, it's getting my vote. So it's tough.
So Fuller House does not count on Full
House.
It does not.
And I like Stephanie. Did anyone else like Stephanie?
I like Stephanie the most of the three.
Yeah, me too.
I have not actually ever seen an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think it's everything I've ever heard. It sounds fantastic. I'd like to watch it. I just never have.
It's on Peacock.
But it's Brooklyn Nine is getting my vote because I hate Full House with a fiery passion. I think it is just awful. It's the stupid laugh track, type of moral at the end that's not actually funny. Fuller House ruined this even more for me because Fuller House was so bad that people, I think, watched it because they thought it was so bad that it was good.
I would say it shouldn't affect your thing, but you already hate it so much on its own that
some of the funniest things in Full House are the things that don't get laugh tracks.
Yeah.
Especially watching it now. I watched a few episodes when I was older, a couple of years ago, and I was like, man, like some of the like poor Danny and his like OCD and his cleaning stuff. There's some funny stuff happening with that. That's not getting the audience laughter, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Which is why I hate laugh tracks. I can't I have a hard time watching almost any show with a laugh track for that reason. It's like I don't want to be told when to laugh. I hate it.
And Brooklyn Nine-Nine's cold opens are excellent. The Backstreet Boys one is probably one of the most like referenced in the history of television. For shows that have cold opens, not everything does, but it has to be Full House. Where are you guys at here?
I'm Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Probably Full House.
We go to the chat
Damn.
where we have some split views.
Oh, wow.
There's
Full House is the
there's
worst.
a no Full House ever, which is a Brooklyn Nine-Nine vote.
Mm-hmm.
A 9-9, which is a 9-9 vote. a full house and a full house. So,
it's full house by
it's
3-1 in the tiebreaker.
yes.
Well, hold on. No, your brother just voted.
Oh,
Full
Michaela
House.
just voted.
Kayla voted Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
It's 3-2 Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh,
Woo! It's getting spicy. Got any others in here? Anybody else?
is it 2-2? It is, isn't it?
Well, because
no,
Mike said Full House sucks,
Yeah,
Mike-
so that's
Mike did
anti.
9-9.
and
That's a
then
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
and then Michaela and
So it's 3-2.
yes. So
All right.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine wins after all.
All right,
Yes,
you know, I'm okay with that.
good.
I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a good show.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine's about to get stomped in the next round, but
Yeah.
I wish it's nice that it gets to go
It
through
won't
once.
go 4-0. Don't worry.
It would have been against either of them, I think.
Probably.
I hate Sex in the City. I'm voting for Andy Griffith.
Here's a weird one. We have the number 10 seed because, older shows was easier to rack up episodes. How some of their seasons were 30 or 35 episodes on their own. But it's the 10 seed, the Andy Griffith Show, versus the 55 seed Sex in the City. Look,
Similar tonally.
Sex in the City, too big not to include on this list. Probably not the right panel for it. Let's just put it out there right now.
It's not.
So-
I'm probably gonna. God, this is really hard because they're both pretty big, right? But like cultural influence. Tell me about the Andy Griffith Show.
So
Big
it
or
was-
like gigantic?
I mean, it launched Ron Howard's career.
Yep.
It was again
So
that
Happy Days with it.
early six. Well, I mean, Ron Howard was a kid in that one. Like he was, I guess that's his first one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Andy Griffith was a really big influence in TV back in that time. And again, it's like that, this part of America teach you morals type of show. And it's good in its own right. It doesn't hold up great nowadays, I don't think, if you were to watch it now. But it was important for the time, that's for sure.
Andy Griffith Show is tough because I think it's one of the best examples of like a TV character in the sense that this is, a lawman who has to kind of keep things under control in his town, and it's in the South-ish, so like he's always sort of set in his ways, but by God, it's a character that actually sort of learns and evolves as he goes, and he's always open to learning and stuff. So you want to talk about like positive cop influences on TV, like goddamn.
Mhm.
And again, like I'm not the demo for Sex in the City, so like I kind of really liked Andy Griffith Show growing up. I also really liked Matlock, so I kind of liked him in both. But I'm going that way because I haven't watched Sex in the City. I'm sorry.
I want to vote Sex in the City because I know, like,
Hugely important.
hugely important, and also just like there was a period there where it was almost like as ubiquitous as like Netflix. Like
Yeah.
what everybody has Netflix. Everybody's seen Sex in the City. Everybody
can't-
loves Sex in the
I
City.
can't fucking imagine what Twitter would have been like if Sex and the City was like coming out and that social media existed as that show was like in its heyday going through. It would have just been fucking a nightmare.
Yeah. So I mean, it's huge, and and I will say, importantly, like for women, you talk about the Bechdel test or whatever. Like, I mean, they talk about men a lot, but they also talk about they're leading the show, so they talk about everything.
Mhm.
It's big. So I'm gonna wait. Who's
I'm gonna go. So what's interesting is I actually watched Sex and the City recently. Courtney went through pretty much the whole series, just kind of off and on. Like while I was doing this show, she'd watch it or something like that. And so I caught a lot of it. And while I don't see eye to eye with the characters a lot in it, I understand how incredibly progressive it was for early 2000s, in just kind of being inclusive of races, gender, creed, sexuality, whatever it is. And just kind of giving a little bit of a launch to this type of liberal type of feeling about being who you want to be type of deal. And the women are strong. I don't know that I'd always watch on my own, but I'll vote for it for absolutely its length of time and its influence on popular culture.
I'll agree with everything you said, except I didn't enjoy watching it. But I was also watching with Megan, and so that makes it hard. And I was also forced to watch it. It wasn't like, hey, do you want to come watch this with me? It was like, hey, this is what we're watching. So I'll give it to Sex in the City. It's a begrudging vote, though.
I said before we started, I don't like Sex in the City.
Oh, okay. All right. So 2-2 again. Wow, we're very split
So the
today.
tiebreaker, which is looking like Sex in the City.
That's just fine.
Yep. So let's see. Yeah. Well, it looks like it's 2-1 Sex and the City. Yep.
Okay. All right. There you go.
All right. Thank you, Courtney, for agreeing with me.
I didn't want Andy Griffith to get shut out, so
That's fair.
I think it's a very interesting show because it went from being in black and white into color in the middle of its run, which is a really weird thing that obviously did.
How are we doing? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. How many more do we have?
7.
Oh,
12,
okay.
13.
We're on an
15.
okay pace as long as we keep it up.
Okay.
Here we have the number 23 seed Coach against the number 42 seed New Girl. Coach, I think, wildly underrated.
Mhm.
I really like Coach a lot.
I love Coach.
But-
I love Coach so much.
New Girl is a tough one to be up against.
Yeah.
Because I like New Girl quite a bit, even though it doesn't always hit the mark.
I think I'm fascinated that most of the people on this thing actually really like New Girl. I thought I would get shit all over very quickly.
It's weird because New Girl was getting shit for everybody getting tired of Zooey Deschanel, and I was like, I don't get that. She's great. And then I got tired of Zooey Deschanel. I was like, oh,
Yeah, it
I think
happens.
that's what it's like.
I think Schmidt got to me in a very bad way. Like I was just like, I don't like you. And then he got his girlfriend towards the end. He was a little more tolerable, but like I don't know, like that character rubbed me the wrong way all the time.
But the actor's so good.
Yes,
Like-
and that's probably a testament to him.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be the wrong way.
I mean, it's all about Nick Miller for me. Like, my God.
There are very few people I can relate more to on television than
He's-
Nick Miller.
Cody.
He made to be so
There's
pathetic.
There's an episode of New Girl where they're trying to convince Nick Miller to go to a party.
Yes.
And he's like, no, I don't want to go to a party. I'm not going to go. They finally convince him to go. He takes one step in,
he
says
just
nope,
looked
and turns and walks out.
right the fuck out.
It's maybe one of like top 5 hardest I've ever laughed at a TV show. It was so
Dave, I'm
good.
aware that Nick Miller is pathetic when he's in his like I'm sad that Caroline broke up with me early part of the thing. But his just really like staunch stances on stupid shit of just like, I'm going to argue this point. I think there's an argument where he says, I know I'm wrong, but I'm going to argue my point
Like, that's-
anyway.
That's what Cody
that-
bases life on.
Exactly. Like,
That
I'm
stuff
sorry.
irritates the shit out of me because personally, if I ran into someone like that, I'd be like, "Oh my god!" and I would like lose
So
my
then
mind.
you
like,
relate with Schmidt really
Oh.
well. Jake
don't-
Johnson is just
love him.
he plays Nick Miller
I know he
so
does. I
fucking
like
well.
Jake.
in
And
that
it's a
show.
weird testament
That's
to the
all.
show that I don't know this, but I heard Megan Fox came on, and you're like, oh, here we go. And I heard it
She
was
was
still
ve-
really good.
She was very
Yeah.
good when
Yeah.
she subs in when I think Zoe's pregnant,
Mhm.
and they write Zoe out of the loft for a little bit, bring Megan Fox in. This is some of the best things I've seen Megan Fox
I've heard
do
people
in
be
her
like,
career.
keep Zoe
Well,
out.
especially for the anti-Zoe folks. But she was also good on her own merit.
Yeah.
This is tough for me because I feel like I should like Coach more than I do. It's sports-based. There's a ton of cameos on it. It's really like 90s centric, so you can look at the list of people that are there and you're like, oh, wow. Like
Coach
it's
is an FCS team, right?
Yeah, like, I mean,
or is
there's-
it an FBS team?
who the hell knows anymore?
They won a national championship in the show. They're FBS.
So like I love the setting for it. Craig T. Nelson's phenomenal. The rest of the supporting cast is good. There's some characters that are fine. They're not really a big star maker. I think I would pick New Girl as the funniest show on this list. For me, I'm not saying it's objectively the funniest, but for me, it's probably the show that made me laugh the most, even more than my personal favorite that we haven't hit yet. So like I'm gonna go for New Girl, even though it's another really close one for me.
God, New Girl
Yeah.
is really funny.
I never
watching it.
I never found it that funny. And Coach to me, and maybe this is just a little nostalgia in there, but I just watched that show and I was intrigued as a kid. I'm like, oh, there's a show about sports. Watching it now, I watch it, I'm like, oh, this wasn't about sports at all. Some of the sports on this was the absolute worst coverage you could possibly have. They would literally take, like, the school in the show was Minnesota State, and they would literally just take Minnesota, this college, and put them against some random team that they played and be like, yep, that's Minnesota State versus West Texas and whatever, and it was actually Minnesota versus Wisconsin. They just stole clips, which I thought was fun. But I don't know. Hayden Fox is a character just being this, I'm a jock guy, and then he learns and grows throughout the series
Yeah.
and how to be a better person overall. I really like that growth as a character throughout the whole show, and it becoming less and less about him being a jock. I thought it was funny. I thought Dauber was a dumb character, but grew smarter as the show went on and was funny. I would vote for this against a lot of other shows on this list. I love it.
Dauber is it's Bill Fink. I don't know how to say it.
Fagerbake.
Okay, he's Patrick Starr's voice.
I'm probably gonna go New Girl on the
Special-
merits
Special fun fact.
of
Mhm.
Jake Johnson alone. I'm going New Girl.
I'm also voting for New Girl.
Kind of
Oh.
a feeling.
God.
Sorry, Coach.
sorry.
Tough first round
You know,
draw.
Coach wasn't like you would argue hugely influential and all this stuff. Like
No,
It was
that's
good.
the problem.
That's the thing is,
Yeah.
I can't argue some of it stuff. And I know it was popular while it was on, but there's New Girl might be in the same boat, so maybe it's just a recency bias, but like,
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, it's tough. Coach probably should have been bigger than it was, but it wasn't all that big at the end of the day. I mean, it wasn't small by any means, but when you compare it to some of the juggernauts.
I'm sorry, Coach. I do like you. I would have voted you in a lot of other brackets. I'm sorry.
I look at Coach sort of like I look at Step by Step. It's a fine show when it was on. I don't.
Oh,
know
boy.
Yeah.
Sorry,
look at
Cody,
this one.
I keep cutting you off.
That's fine.
I got distracted by...
Number 3, Frasier. Number 62, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Speaking of people who are dicks on TV.
Kimmy Schmidt would be way up on my list of shows that I thought were hilarious. It also got a little too goofy by the end, which is tough because the goofy shows always have to strike that balance, right? But some do effectively. We'll get to one that does a great job of it later. So, like, even me, who's probably the biggest fan of Kimmy Schmidt here, I'm voting for Frasier because it's fucking Frasier.
Yeah. Well, and I really think Frasier's funny. I really do. I enjoy it a lot.
As bougie as it is, it still manages to land humor with both the intelligentsia and the common folk. The dad obviously helps quite a bit with that, but nonetheless, like, it's funny every episode. Every episode is funny.
I really like Frasier. And I never connected with Kimmy Schmidt. This could be The Office's fault. Her character in The Office could have it would have maybe a non-starter, but...
Well, I always thought she was hot in The Office and didn't care that she was dumb, but she does get saddled with the worst character in the show for like 2 seasons, so it's hard not to dislike her.
That didn't help.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll talk more about The Office later. We'll get back to it, I promise.
Kimmy Schmidt was good for about 4 episodes, I'd say. Like the plot, I thought the setup was good. The episode with John episode with John Hammond, I thought he is phenomenal in there. It is too fucking weird to make me even think to watch, even go back and watch it. And Frasier, like you guys said, great connection of the mixing of bougie and American. Like, I love their interactions and how they put this guy who's so good for everything and he keeps failing because he is so good for everything. I thought it was great. I love Frasier.
And can fix everybody else's problems and not his own. I mean, boy, is there a lot to be learned from that because we all do that to some degree.
I care about the relationships, the will they, won't they's for a few of the different characters in that show. Yeah. It's just great.
Kimmy Schmidt has some of the best throwaway gags in the business. And it's frustrating that I can't make it past round 1 because it's a show I liked quite a bit. It's against Frasier. And like Kimmy Schmidt has really funny scenarios and stuff. The whole premise is kind of silly, but pretty funny when you think about it. It didn't have the legs to sustain multiple seasons. It just didn't. So,
Cody?
I don't like Frasier very much, but I got through about 2 seasons of Kimmy Schmidt before I just kind of could. I was like, oh, the new season came out. I'm not gonna. It just tailed off. I did really think John Hamm was really fucking funny when he was on that show briefly.
Yep.
He was really good. I actually like Jane Krakowski, right? Is her name, the one who's also in 30 Rock. I actually enjoyed her in that show because I thought she was pretty funny in 30 Rock. Going back to that she was one of the few things I did enjoy. Yep. But for all of the history, popular thing, Frasier can go ahead and just win. It's already going to win anyway, so I'll just jump on.
Why is John Hamm not bigger than he is?
I have no fucking idea.
And he's decently big, but like he's not an A-lister.
I have no idea.
He was on one of the most popular shows on Mad Men. He's been in movies. He was in Baby Driver. His character in Baby Driver is awesome.
Yeah, I know, but like he's not an A-lister. He should be an A-lister, but he's not.
Yeah, he's doing Esurance fucking or not
Progressive.
What's progressive commercials right now?
And that should be below someone of his stature. But
and I can't understand. He's fucking hilarious in Bridesmaids. He's one of the best people who's ever guest hosted on SNL. He's fucking hilarious when he goes on.
I mean, he's in Top Gun. He's great in the sequel.
Interesting. So.
He's always good, but he's always like a side character. He's like, he's a side character in like 50 things. But
he should be as big as Bryan Cranston. The difference is Breaking Bad made Bryan Cranston in a way that most people didn't see him before, whether it was Malcolm or whatever. He's already had his huge show though, and Mad Men was enormous. So why isn't John Hamm bigger now?
Also, he's actually funnier than he is better as a dramatic actor. And his show he came off of was a drama show.
Yeah.
He needs to get onto like an HBO comedy or a comedy that's on premium, so it doesn't have to be all family friendly. His agent needs to get him on a fucking comedy like that because I think he'll kill it.
Yeah. Thank you for watching our analysis of John Hamm.
Our TED Talk on John Hamm.
This is easy for me.
This is a matchup that I don't think is that hard for me either. It's the number 30 seed I Love Lucy. Again, total number of episodes. Against the number 35 seed Growing Pains. I'll lock in first just because I always end up going last more often, it feels like, and I don't want it to be unfair. I'm going I Love Lucy. So important. both for what it represented as a lead actress at that time, who was actually considered to be funny, but just its general place in the comedy pantheon. Like, nothing against Growing Pains, which is a fine show. It's fucking I Love Lucy. It's not going to make it to the end of this bracket, but it should damn sure make it 1 or 2 rounds.
You have a lot of shows like 60s, 70s where I'm like, maybe it was funny before, but you watch it now, it's just not. I don't connect anymore. It's not funny at this point. I Love Lucy, older than all of those, and I'm still like, I'll watch an episode. It's hilarious.
I feel like you watch it and you're like, oh, I've seen that in a show that happened 30 years later.
Exactly.
And they all stole a bunch
all
of bits
the time
from that show that happened way, way, way back, all over and over again. I think we mentioned that with Bewitched, or one of those other shows. Like, there were like bits of that you see in other ones. I Love Lucy basically did that across the board. That show definitely needs to advance.
Yep.
I'm voting for Lucy.
Michaela just mentioned it in chat, and I agree.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
there's two bits that stand out for me. The chocolates one where she's on the conveyor belt, like trying, so funny, and the Vegemita vitamin bit. I don't know if people remember that one, but it had alcohol in it, and she kept doing this commercial and kept being progressively drunker throughout the entire thing. So fucking funny. Just to this day, Lucille Ball was just a phenomenal actress.
But I think they mix though some of like the Three Stooges, like physical comedy, but there's like the writing is really, it's not like super witty or whatever, but it's funny.
It's really funny. I'm amazed that it's still funny today. That's like what's most amazing about it, that it was so good that it's still funny today.
Yeah.
I don't even have anything really to say about Growing Pains.
I don't
just for the interest of time, like,
I would need my memory triggered on what even that is.
Me too. I don't even remember it.
Let's just move on.
Just knowing that we're so pinched for time in the first round.
Alan Thicke, Kirk Cameron, and then Leo at the end of the show's run.
That was an okay show.
That's it.
That's what I'll give it. So when Leo's watching this and it's like, oh, I hope they say something about my first show.
Did you do your homework? Did anyone watch episodes of Curb?
I wanted to for sure.
Fucker.
I didn't.
There's been a wildfire, so no.
You're excused.
I got COVID, so no.
I mean, this is tough because Drew Carey show was pretty big.
Look, I'll mention, by the way, it's the 14 seed.
I think
it lasted longer than you think it did.
I think you should hold off all your Drew Carey stuff because I'm pretty sure it's going to advance, and we can just go through this very quickly.
I think Curb Your Enthusiasm might be the smartest show on this list.
So fucking good.
And as a result, it also has moments that are quite funny. I haven't seen a ton of it. I've seen probably 4 or 5 episodes. I've liked it quite a bit.
You make the point of Arrested Development isn't as smart as it thinks it is when it writes it. I feel like Curb actually is. Some of the shit that they write into it and the situations they put him in, which again, I think it's relatable because as a person who gets angry at stupid shit people do across the world, like the world, and just in daily life, I just sit there being like, Larry David's right. He's just an asshole about it over and over and over. And he gets his comeuppance so fucking often because he's such a jackass. I just enjoy that he has written himself into getting fucked over so often in so many hilarious ways.
Well, I didn't really like the Drew Carey show that much.
Oh, okay.
So
I can win you over, I see.
And it lasted for a long time and it was pretty popular. Would I say like mega influential? Probably not. Although it did good numbers. I like Ryan Stiles, but I like him more in Whose Line? Yeah. I like Drew Carey more in Whose Line for that matter. So I don't know. Drew Carey, am I missing something? I never thought it was all that funny.
Craig Ferguson.
Yep.
Yeah.
Important. Also sorely missed in the late night scene. Really liked him in just that format. Yeah. Especially towards the end. That show got goofy in one of the good ways. We just talked about how sometimes goofy is too bad, but that show hit its stride in the last couple seasons. But then we're not talking about that. We're talking about Drew Carey. Still, at the end of the day, I think Kathy Kinney kind of underrated. Certainly the butt of jokes frequently on that show is Mimi, but it's tough. I don't actually think I even love the Drew Carey show that much, but because it had Ryan Stiles on it and Drew Carey, and I thought Diedrich Baker was pretty funny. I'm going to pick it. The live shows they did got to be pretty chaotic, but interesting because there weren't a lot of other things like it. And so I'm going to go with it just because they also had some Whose Line guest stars. It's not going to be something that makes it very far, even for me who likes it, but I'm going to go with it here. I'm
going to go with Curb Your Enthusiasm, Cody, because I think I would really like it. And all the things that you've said about it have sounded really appealing to me. And when it's going against Drew Carey, which I didn't love, I feel comfortable being like, yeah, I'm going to...
You also, in Curb, you're going to get a fuck ton of cameos.
Yeah.
Whether some of them are playing versions of themselves like Larry is. Some are playing characters they've created. That's what kind of is nice is they just hit you with fucking hilarious people so often
Cool.
in that show.
Great. So, Dave, what do you think?
This is tough because
For example, Ted Danson is an asshole in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
So it should get Mike's vote.
Exactly.
So here's the problem: is I've watched a lot more Drew Carey show than I have Curb Your Enthusiasm. For the reasons you like it, Cody, as far as saying you get angry at people for stupid shit they do. I don't. Like in real life, if I see people do stupid shit, I'm like, that was stupid. Move on. I don't care. Like I don't get angry at this at all. So it's hard for me to connect with this character. But on the flip side of that, him getting his comeuppance for being an asshole all the time is great. I feel like I'd like Curb Your Enthusiasm a lot. Drew Carey show was constantly trying to push the boundaries of different things. Like they were just trying different things all the time, which I liked. Like Chris mentioned, the live shows. So I think had I watched Curb Your Enthusiasm more, I'd vote for it. But I think I'm going to vote Drew Carey.
Okay, well, here we go.
All right,
And
chat,
we
we
have
need you to chime
one
in. We
Drew
see
vote
one
so
vote for Drew so
I
far.
have to imagine Drew Carey's moving on.
I mean, we need more votes, people.
You know what, Cody? I tried.
Just
I
watch.
gave it a vote.
Just watching a couple episodes. And,
Yeah, I'm
and just
probably
kinda-
gonna like it a lot. Amazing. It was on our list, but
What's it going up against next anyway? So it's probably not going to matter.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
Cool. Well, Doug hasn't seen it. That's
Haven't
great.
seen it. We're running out of time for tiebreakers.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
There's so many funny people. Also, if you hate Ross, Schwimmer plays himself in there. He's also a piece of shit,
Well, okay.
and it's very funny to watch him be a piece of shit. In
That's
all right, Drew Carey,
just-
sure. Yeah, that's okay.
so is Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller also an asshole playing himself in that show.
Am I the only person on the planet? And I know that's a joke because this was a hugely popular TV show. I was gonna say that I thought King of Queens was pretty funny. Oh, that was pretty funny. I know people are sick.
I fucking hate
Paul
Kevin
Blart,
James.
and
fucking
I was
hate
like, this
Kevin
is
James.
before
Kevin
that.
I preferred it to Raymond.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure, cool.
I'm not going to vote it over I Dream of Jeannie. By the way, just for the people who don't have the video, King of Queens is the 19 seed here because it lasted for quite a long time. I Dream of Jeannie is the 46 seed. But I'm voting for. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this one because I'm also not a big King of Queens fan. I think it was actually kind of funny, but it still doesn't have a lot of characters I really love.
Okay, thank you. I think it was pretty funny.
Stiller,
It was pretty
Stiller's,
funny.
Ben Stiller's dad
Yeah. Jerry
Yes.
Stiller.
is
Great.
excellent on that. He's also excellent on Seinfeld, obviously.
Sure.
He's really, really good on that show. He's, to me, the only person I can kind of consistently laugh at when they're
I
on
thought it was
there.
really funny. I enjoyed watching it a lot. But you're talking about like cultural and all that. I also did like I Dream of Jeannie. I preferred it to Bewitched a little bit.
King of Queens is another fucking CBS show. There's so
And,
many.
yeah, it is. Yes,
it
it
is.
is. So yeah, I Dream of Jeannie is
Out
pretty
of all-
easy to me.
Out of all the shit that CBS puts out, King of Queens is probably the best of it. And
Hey, there you go.
but I mean, so that great. You know, well, okay, take it back. How I Met Your Mother was CBS.
Yeah, I knew that
Mhm.
caveat, but
Yeah. Anyway, so the problem with it though is again, how are these two people married? They hate each other. I hate sitcoms where the wife and husband hate each other.
that's not true. They're pretty fond of each other.
That one's again better than Raymond. There's definitely
Yeah.
times where they go at each other, but that's whenever one where I was like, oh, they're not even believable as a couple.
Yeah. But I Dream of Jeannie is I think really well written still. It didn't hold up like wonderfully today, but still it's still a funny show. It gets in ridiculous situations. It's good. I'll vote for it.
I think King of Queens is one of the more forgettable shows on this list. Like it's weird to me that would probably get more acclaim overall than Coach.
Yeah. Which is sad.
It's
I
a
would've voted
fine
for-
show.
See, I
but
would have voted for Coach over King of Queens.
I would have too.
Oh well. Oh God.
talk about different shows.
This is going to be hard because unfortunately I haven't seen Schitt's Creek. I
Oh,
have
boy.
heard such good things.
and it's won so many awards.
Yes.
But it's up
So-
against MASH.
And then
MASH, the 6th seed.
I never liked MASH, but I'm aware of MASH. And
I've never watched either of these shows, but I'm aware of how influential they were.
how
Right.
could I possibly not vote for MASH in the first round? Like, it's a show I haven't seen.
So I think MASH was important because it was a first show to be funny in serious situations. I think that's why it was like no show really had done that well before. And so being in the backdrop of the Vietnam War, which was, obviously a huge deal at the time, but also being funny was like, wait, how are you doing this? So I can understand its importance. But I never watched it. That's my problem. Is I don't know that I've ever actually watched a whole episode. I just know about it.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
I thought it was so
Um,
boring. I'm sorry. I could not do it.
Schitt's Creek, on the other hand, I was told this was like the greatest show ever. It is phenomenal. It is wonderful. It is everything that you'd ever want. And while it was good, it was fine. I don't get the hype. I don't get why it was loved that much. Like, it was good. I liked it. I don't understand why I loved it more. Like, so many people loved it that much. Don't get it. So
Cody?
I don't know where I'll vote here.
I've watched 0 seconds of either of these shows.
Jesus. All right. Well, I guess we're going MASH by default. Chris, have you seen Schitt's Creek?
I have seen only the first 2 episodes of Schitt's Creek. It's one I'd like to watch more of down the road because I have heard such good things. It kind of scratches that feel good itch at times. It's up against MASH.
Yeah.
It was like if I'm doing the what show's more influential. I mean, I get that Schitt's Creek just ended and all that, but MASH like super fucking important.
Like,
Yeah.
MASH is
Yeah.
never going to
Doesn't it
be
have the-
unseated as the most watched
Watched.
finale in TV history because the
exactly.
TV landscape is so different now. So it's not really fair, but that also means it was bigger than anything that came before it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that matters to me.
Yeah. Chat's going with all MASH too. I can go that way, even though Schitt's Creek would beat a lot of other shows on this list. I will say.
King of Queens.
Tough
Yeah.
matchup. Schitt's Creek would have definitely won at least a round against at least a third of the field.
Yeah.
But
I'd say half, but
maybe, yeah.
All right.
Oh,
So,
All right.
Oof.
All
no,
right.
this is easy.
Oof.
This is easiest choice ever for me.
come on.
Yep.
Then
Come
okay, so
on.
Dave's vote is
I'm about to
for
get my
Scrubs.
fucking heart
Scrubs.
broke
Okay.
here is what's going to
Look.
happen.
Boy Meets World was again one of those like that TGIF type of deal. I don't know how all these shows were so popular. I don't get it.
Well, Boy Meets World is really funny, first of all. It was really funny.
I've watched a bunch of it. I don't get it.
and also I think a lot more relatable. I think to me
Yeah.
the reason I liked this a lot more than Saved by the Bell was that Saved by the Bell felt like characters, and these felt more like people that I might encounter or
Sure.
be friends with.
Exactly. So, like, you have the dads, you have the morals a lot of the time that show up, but they're given by Mr. Feeney. So they actually land, like, way more often than they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, even now, the people I see every once in a while, they post a speech about him talking about, like, the internet and how to use your time effectively. And it's like, damn, Mr. Feeney, you were so ahead of your time. So you get the good feels, you get the funny, you get the relatable characters. I think it was such a good show. Scrubs is definitely good. I didn't connect with it as much as many have. I love Boy Meets World. I love the Will They Won't They with Topanga. I love the Halloween episodes they do in Boy Meets World. Really funny, where they systematically murder the whole cast in what I think was probably not appropriate for that rating of television. I loved it. I think I'm gonna be the only fucking vote for Boy Meets World though.
I think I think Cody's on the fence on this one. I think he likes both of these a lot.
So
they are 2 of my favorite shows.
So here's the
without a
thing.
doubt.
Okay, one I have to ask Chris, is the Scrubs episode count, did you just manually cut off season 9? Because we all know that doesn't exist.
I left it in there. That's why it even made it to 27th in the first place. Because as we know, 8-ish seasons.
What an
Scrubs
awful final season
Oh, it was
of
a-
television. Just
There are a handful of
Fucking
moments
disaster.
that can't make it worthwhile. Don't get me wrong. There's a handful. There's like one good episode and a handful of funny moments. But man, it's like, how did you miss the mark this badly?
Yeah, I don't.
so
Especially after what I think is one of the better finales in season 8.
yes.
I agree.
Well, Cody, I want to hear your vote though, because that's what we need to spend more time on in a
That's
way.
fair.
You know?
Boy Meets World's probably the show I grew up with more than any of these. And I think you already kind of made the point that I would make over again is that I get it can give you a little preachy and little like lessons learned and this and that. I think it deals with some hard shit pretty effectively. That's like, there's like there's a happy ending in the thing, but a lot of network TV on ABC and stuff like that. I didn't feel like ever really went to the point of like, oh shit, like his friend is really poor and has a really tough upbringing, and then obviously his dad's like, he does like the Vader, which is weird for people who know what wrestling is and stuff. But I thought it tried to address some of that really, really effectively, and I think it did it better than most of those other shows from the 90s that I can remember. My problem is Scrubs, and this isn't the point of this bracket, but Scrubs does some like drama on a comedy show better than I think any show was ever gonna be able to do. I mean, the arc with Brendan Fraser on there is probably going to be one of my favorite arcs of television in history, and how that pays off. I'm probably going to have to vote Scrubs, Sean. I'm really
That's
sorry.
okay. That's
But
okay.
this is without a doubt the hardest decision I've had, and I knew it last week when I saw it. Because Boy Meets World, is probably in my top 8 favorite shows of all time.
If I could have rearranged the bracket in a way, I would have made sure these two didn't collide. We've talked before about if this wasn't this matchup. Like, again, Boy Meets World, a show I liked quite a bit. I love the fact that they didn't try and hide anybody's ages.
Yes.
It's like, we're going to follow these characters, and they end up in fucking college by the end.
They progressed.
It's not like it's a 26-year-old playing a 16-year-old.
It's interesting because that's a risk because it's changing the audience, but it's changing the audience as they also aged, basically. It basically was like, okay, we know we have like these 3 years of people who are going to watch a show. Now they're going to watch the fucking show the whole way through because we're going to follow them along while they're matching an age. And not really any shows are doing that in the same way when it comes to people who have kids on there.
Which is why I was more interested in the idea of a reboot for that than I was like Saved or other ones, because I'm like, I actually care to follow the progression of these characters because you made me care in the first place.
And then they make Girl Meets World on the Disney Channel, and it was stupid.
It wasn't the same spirit of what the show was.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it was a Disney Channel original show that's like dumb and goofy.
It was meant for 10-year-olds. That's the problem.
This was like must-see TV for me. Like when they were getting married, I was like, oh man, that's awesome.
Two left. We're going to run a hair over 9, but we almost made it. Another weird first-round matchup because they're two shows that really can't be a whole lot more different.
Will and Grace needs to win because I watched Entourage a lot as a high schooler. I thought it was great. It's a fucking terrible show. I would punch my 18-year-old self in the face for spending so much fucking time watching that piece of shit show, you fucking douchebag.
I didn't like Will and Grace much, and then I went back and watched some more recently, and I was like, oh, this is actually really funny. All of the characters are funny, but in like very different ways. I think there's a lot of quality to it, and then obviously how progressive it was.
Right.
Two gay characters, multiple gay characters leading a show like this at the time it came out. Oh my God, that's huge.
It was a punchline at the time. That's part of why I didn't get into it at the time, because of the Will and Grace. Yeah, because you could just laugh about people being gay at the time, and that was fine. It wasn't, of course, but at the time. So like, it's kind of weird now because I had the same experience. I went back and watched it more recently. I was like, damn, this is actually like good. Mm-hmm. So Entourage, obviously influential, certainly.
To who?
A ton of cameos. I mean influential as far as like the industry, but as far as like as getting to the national zeitgeist of the conversation, like it forced its way in a way. Like again, this became a lot more talked about than a show like fucking King of Queens. Nobody's ever like, I'm gonna go to the water cooler and talk about last night's episode of King of Queens.
That's true. I don't remember which one of you said it, or which like, who the fuck do you root for in Entourage? They are all horrendous human beings,
which some people like
every moment, and I like people who are terrible, but nothing bad fucking happens to them.
Yeah.
They're just pieces of shit, and then they stay rich, and then they make it, their careers got a little tough, and then they get to go and be in some big movie. It just fucking, and then they made a fucking movie.
Sure.
They made a sequel to the show for a fucking movie, and I went and watched it because I'm an asshole.
Remember, everybody, just for the context, Cody loves shows with people that you can hate who are assholes to everybody else. And he also likes reality television for some of the same reasons. And yet he hates Entourage. So that's the biggest grain of salt you can find. It's a cube of salt.
I did love it, though. But like looking back on it, it is so misogynistic. It is fucking unbelievable.
4-0?
Yeah.
I never watched Entourage ever. I literally know nothing about it.
Again, I fucking loved this show so much. And I just look back and I'm like, what the fuck were you thinking?
Will and Grace also.
I was the target audience though. So.
Talking about this like huge numbers, Will and Grace big time. So
tons
of awards, tons of Emmys.
Yep.
Oh man, what a way to go out!
What a weird one, and that's why I wanted to kind of get through the last one so we could spend a little more time on this one. By the way, the last one was 11 seeded Will and Grace because it was around for again probably longer than you think against 54 Entourage. This one, the 22nd seed, The Cosby Show against the 43 seed, The Nanny. I'll go first real quick and just say this. The Nanny's been kind of going through a bit of a resurgence recently. I've seen a lot of people talking about like her fashion on the show, Fran Drescher's humor overall. And of course, we've already alluded to the fact that The Cosby Show is a little bit tough to watch now, given what's happened with its primary character since then.
Yep.
However, The Cosby Show is also one of like the sitcoms in my head. Watching it growing up, I loved that show. It was funny. It was heartfelt. It felt real to me. I didn't see myself in these characters in a way that other people could, which is good for them. But even so, I was like, I feel like I'm in this family in a way I didn't, even with like a Full House or something. Full House I liked because I thought it was like funny and like a weird situation, but I never felt like I could connect to those characters. I did with Cosby Show.
Yeah.
So I'm probably picking it, even though I think The Nanny is like painfully slept on and only just now starting to finally get some recognition.
It sucks because I actually really like The Nanny a lot. I watched it back then. I mean, you're saying resurgence now. I thought it was funny when I watched it. But
How jokes went over your head though when you watched it as a kid, because it's stunningly dirty.
Oh,
Like, really
I'm sure,
raunchy.
I'm sure a lot of it did. Yeah, but I liked it. But man, I really love the Cosby Show. And like, look, we're gonna have to address how much Bill Cosby being a trash human being is gonna affect this. But if you can separate it, it's really all the things Chris just said, all those great things while also being just really funny, really, really funny. So I'm also voting Cosby Show.
I guess I didn't watch much TV when I was a kid because I never watched the Cosby Show at all. Like, I don't know a single episode. I know about it thanks to just it being as popular as it was, but I never watched the Cosby Show. I didn't really watch the Nanny much when I was younger, but watching it as an older, it's really funny. And so I'll vote Nanny, even though I understand the influence of the Cosby Show and the fact of showing like a successful black family on TV is great, especially for the late 80s when that was on. Still, the Cosby being what he is today really kind of tilts them a scale.
Sure.
That way for me.
Cody.
I love The Nanny so much. Also, because I guess I started to watch it, I think, because it ended in like the late 90s. I had a pretty big crush on Fran Drescher when I was like
Really?
into my teenage years.
Her voice is
No, it doesn't bother me at
awful.
all. It doesn't bother me in the slightest.
it is grating. Like
It does not bother me at all. There's the character on Friends that has it's the same bit. Yeah, I'm voting for The Nanny 100%.
Chat, fire out those votes for the last time. It's a 2-2 tie. We need your last
Pay
tiebreaker
attention
here.
and don't vote for a terrible man.
The thing, but like, okay.
No, don't vote for a terrible man.
Are we separating it or not, though?
No,
Because
we're not
Cosby
separating
Show,
it. No, we're not separating it. He's a bad man.
I mean, I know he is a bad man, but
Some people can't separate it, and that's
I can't
fine.
separate
Look, I
it.
mean, Cody and I
All
have the
right.
wrestling background, and one of my favorite wrestlers was Chris Benoit, and boy, was that a fucking train wreck. To where I understand when people are like, yeah, like he killed his whole family and then himself, so I can't associate myself with him whatsoever. And I'm like, look, I don't condone that in the slightest, clearly, but as a wrestler,
I think it.
I thought he was an excellent performer, and I can separate the two. I definitely understand why people can't.
I feel like it undercuts
Nanny's going
the
through.
message of the Cosby Show.
That does hurt it quite a bit. That
Is
dissonance.
part of my problem.
That's
which is
the
why
hardest
I can't
part.
I can't separate it.
If his main character was like if you had Bill Cosby in the main theme in the main spot of Married with Children, maybe
Yep.
it's different because then you're like, yeah, he was kind of
He's
a
a
jerk
piece of
then,
shit.
and now he's really a jerk
now
now.
he's
So
a rapist.
life
okay.
imitating art or whatever. But yeah, it was supposed to be the wholesome thing, and he was the Jello pudding guy, and now instead it's not that anymore.
I feel really conflicted because I can't believe we can't get Cosby out of
No.
the first round.
That's
Well, he
correct.
would have gotten out of
But-
the first round if he wasn't, gross. Also, Dave, you know what channel The Nanny was on?
CBS.
It was.
I didn't know that. I'm surprised.
Well,
I
I
liked
mean, you can look at some of the older ones too, like Seinfeld.
Yeah, that was NBC.
it. NBC was Seinfeld.
Oh yeah, you're right. Well,
Yeah.
anyways, the point is that we're not talking serialized 2000 CBS. Like CBS is one of the main networks.
I'm just
A lot of
saying,
these other shows were on it.
CBS
Yeah.
actually was good for a long time when it had a
we're
lot
just-
of those other
You're
shows.
just thinking about the Chuck Lorre area, so
Yes,
like
I'm
it's different now.
I wish I don't know. I feel like I'm someone who usually can separate the artist from the art, and so I don't really care. The problem is I didn't watch Cosby Show growing up, so that might have tilted my scales too, but I just never did.
Is there anything else you can shoot through to the next round?
Oh yeah, let's do that really quick.
There's no
I don't
sense
think there
saving time
is.
now when we're just gonna have a longer episode next time. But
I'm just saying, I don't think there's actually.
I'll tell you what, we'll run
anything.
through the matchups real quick, just so we can kind of primer for next time. And if there's anything you see that really stands out, I'll ask. But we have the 64 seed, Ted Lasso. I had almost forgotten that one in the first round. Against Mad About You. You have
Okay.
Family Matters against Parks and Rec. Bewitched against Malcolm in the Middle. Modern Family against Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's a tough one.
Interesting.
The Good Place against Golden Girls is a tough one. Community against Home Improvement. I'm going to say this a lot. Pretty tough one.
Mhm.
Married with Children and Seinfeld. Friends and The Office. We already kind of mentioned that. but
Ouch.
Push the office through. Now,
one of
do
those
it.
is gone in the second round. Cheers already went through to the third round by beating Three's Company. Roseanne and How I Met Your Mother. Happy
Yeah.
Days and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Sex and the City and New Girl. Frasier and I Love Lucy.
Ooh, that's tough.
Drew Carey Show and I Dream of Jeannie. MASH and Scrubs. Will and Grace and The Nanny. So there's already a couple shows that I would have thought were maybe Elite 8 type contenders. Not ones I would have thought would have won. that are gone, and the bloodbath's just only going to increase in the next round.
Dave, could we, on the Sex and the City one, can we push New Girl through? Or do you...
No.
Okay, all right.
No, it's not that easy to push through. I think chat might have something to say about it, and it's New Girl's fine. I think it's funny. I'm not gonna push it.
It was
through.
less about New Girl and more about like.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
didn't know how skin of the teeth Sex and the City made it through, but okay, all right, I like
Our
that.
demographic, I think.
There's a couple shows that
Yeah.
I think I forgot to put on when we were nominating that I think are better than some of the other shows on here.
Like what?
I don't like a lot, because for example, King of Queens I don't think is very good. I liked Rules of Engagement more. I don't know if you ever watched that
I'd
show.
never even seen
Rules of
it.
Engagement's better, but King of Queens, again, had
more
way too many
episodes.
episodes not to at least be in the conversation.
Another
I put 2 Broke Girls in here knowing it was going to get knocked out in the
Knocked
first
out.
round, but it had to be in the bracket.
Another one was Just Shoot Me.
Oh,
That was on my list.
That I should have put on, and the other one was Spin City. Those are the ones I
Spin
fucked
City
up.
we didn't have on our list, but
I fucked up and didn't add those ones when I was doing it.
I did like Spin City.
Spin City was okay. I really liked Just Shoot Me.
Yeah, I probably
Damn.
should have gotten that one on here,
I'm
or
looking,
at least suggested.
I'm looking through here. I don't know that I see anything that's an obvious 4-0,
4-0.
Yeah, I don't either.
except for
so.
Cheers. So I guess we have
Yeah.
to save them all because I don't know if I can see anything that I can go like, yeah, that's going to be a 4-0.
So I feel like next week is just next round. Or are we supposed to finish this next
We're going to
week?
try and finish it.
Oh my God, good fucking look.
So the shows you haven't talked a lot about yet, we can still get some in for, but
All right.
especially because once we get to the second round, that's the point at which it should be pretty, like, we've talked about everything at that point. Pick one.
All right. That's fair.
Because we can't talk about them all forever. That's the same, like, we fall into that trap, but we do that in the other tournaments where it's like, all right, first round, we take a while on, and now it's like, all right, now we got to start. Got to go.
I'm really curious how much like decades of what these shows are going to be pushed through.
Yeah, we're a little all over the place right now. We actually leaned a little bit more classic than I thought we were going to. But there's some new stuff, some 90s stuff, some classics, a little bit of 80s. Like, there's a good blend here right now. I'm kind of pleased with it overall. There's a couple I'm disappointed in, like, for things I like, but I can't say there's anything where I was like, that's horrible. I can't believe that show made it through.
I'm saddest about Coach because then I'd 4-0 over Sex and the City, but you know.
Yeah, like, there's a couple tough losses in the first round, but when I look at what they were up against, I'm like, yeah, like that. I can see why.
There's a lot of good TV. That's the point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why when I made this bracket, we planned this to be 2 weeks in advance, and then when I finished the planning for it, I was like, no, this is at least 3 because there were 48 shows I had as locks. So at that point, we knew we had to have a 64 show bracket, and then it's like, well, hell, that's going to take forever.
We only have one show that's on now, by the way.
Yes,
Ted Lasso
'cause
and
Brooklyn Nine-Nine's done.
It has ended, yes.
Modern Family's done.
I try to shy away from anything that was on right now for multiple reasons.
yeah.
I don't know how many basic network TV sitcoms are anywhere. Again, I said, like, I think I might have mentioned like Blackish is like one that's a family sitcom that I think could like maybe squeeze on here. But everything is so premium cable, premium TV subscription based. How many of those shows fit in this anymore? Like Ted Lasso's a stretch already.
Yeah.
And look,
Yeah.
I've mentioned on the show before, I'm big on endings. So like Brooklyn Nine-Nine advancing, I didn't mind because I know that ending was done well. How I Met Your Mother is a different example. So like if the show hasn't finished yet, I don't even know if I could really rate it because it's like they could crash and burn, and then I would hate my pick.
All
So
right.
we'll
Well,
see.
And
Now
that's
Ted
it.
Lasso could crash and burn, but I hope season 3 is better than season 2.
It's only got one season left anyway.
Yeah,
since it's
and they planned on 3 from the start, so I like to hope that there's that cohesive vision. All
I
right,
mean,
that's the end of this episode. We will be back next week to try and finish this bracket. We'll see how it goes. If not, I mean, we have a dilemma coming up where Cody's going to be out of town. I don't know if he could join remotely or something if we had to try and split it, but we'll see.
I might be able to.
We could have spent the whole month of June on this, which would be kind of funny.
Yeah.
We'll see where we're at next week. We're not going to rush it. So, like, if it's clear that we're way behind pace, we may decide. But I think we actually can finish it. So we'll see how it goes.
3-hour show.
Thank you for following along with us on this. We have completed the first round. There are still 32 shows remaining, but again, it's going to siphon down much faster from here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll see you next week. To finish off the bracket, in between episodes, you can find us on our website, objectionnetwork.com or youtube.com/objectionnetwork. See you next week.